Welcome to our weekly program, The Inside Story of Chabad in America through the Mendel Archives. Since today is about 2.5 weeks away from Gimel Tammuz, the Yom Hilula of the Rebbe, the Yom HaGodol v'HaKodesh, the holy day, 27 years already since Gimel Tammuz. So I thought I would prepare something special, and in Mitzvah Hashem I will speak about something very special that went in the Rebbe's room while Rabbi Mendel was there. The letters, also what Rabbi Chadakov wrote, which we didn't share with you yet. In Mitzvah Hashem, next week, in 2 weeks, it will be a continuation. But today, I want to say something else. Since people called me this week, last week, Chabad, and mostly not Chabad. As you know, that I used to be a teacher in Yeshiva of Brooklyn, a Litvish Yeshiva. The Rebbe told me I should be there for many years. And now these children out there, they're in Galite. Some of them are Rosh Yeshivas in Lakewood, some of them in Baltimore, Chaim Berlin. And we're in touch from time to time. And now before Gimel Tammuz, they asked me, they called me, we got together, and they want to know about what Rabbi Mendel and Rabbi Chadakov feel today, would be Lubavitch today, about Mashiach and about the other things that is happening. How will they react towards the whole situation now? Baruch Hashem, Lubavitch is growing, Baruch Hashem. And they want to know, did they say anything about, is the Rebbe alive or the Rebbe is not alive? You know, what some people say here, there. So they want to know if there's any notes of Rabbi Chadakov or the Rebbe. So I answered them. I don't have any information. I never spoke to Rabbi Mendel. And I was trying to find notes whether Rabbi Mendel wrote, and I couldn't really find. But since you're asking, maybe I will share my thoughts about but not. I didn't tell them, but I said, if you listen to my program, I will discuss it there, because they listen almost every week. They also told me that it's not only them, but many people want answers. And ein simcha ki hatoras hasfekes. The happiest person is that there's no doubts. There's no sfekes, that he wants to know straight what is Lubavitch Shita, what would the Rebbe hold, and who can I ask now? I mean, Rabbi Chadakov, Rabbi Mendel, they came with the Rebbe in 1940, and they were here the whole time, so they would know. But I have no notes about that. But I will. I asked them, tell me specifically, what questions do you have? What would you like to know? So they told me they heard from Mashpiyim, excuse me, Chabad Mashpiyim, that the Rebbe is the Nossi Hador. I said yes. I know that's the way the Rebbe is the Nossi Hador. Now, Nossi, they heard from Mashpiyim that Nossi is an abbreviation. Nitzutz shel Yaakov Avinu, Neshama shel Yaakov Avinu. And this is a Rebbe. A Rebbe is a Nitzutz, a spark of Yaakov Avinu. So it says by Yaakov Avinu, they asked me, it says Yaakov Avinu loi meis, didn't die. So is that the same thing as the Rebbe right now, that the Rebbe did not die, and the Rebbe is alive begashmius? This is what they asked me. I did not tell them the answer, and this is one of the things that we discussed, but I told them on the program I will try to talk about that. Also, they asked me that they heard from the Mashpia, which I never heard, but maybe they did, that the Mezritcher Magid, after his Histalkos passing away, he was sitting on a table. People saw him sitting on a table. So they asked me, is that why, by davening in 770, the Rebbe's chair is you see the Rebbe's chair ready for the Rebbe to come in? Maybe we think that the Rebbe, we might see the Rebbe. This is what they asked me. These are Litvischer people, and they want to know. By the way, they learn Chassidus, they're interested in Chassidus, but there's certain questions that they want to know, and I'm sure maybe Chabad people also would like to know. Now, who am I to say? I'm not a spokesman for Lubavitch. I can only say my opinion. That's all I can say. I didn't hear from anybody. I didn't hear from Rabbi Chadikov or Rabbi Mindel. Now, I usually don't say my opinion. Whatever I do say is, or I heard from Rabbi Chadikov, Rabbi Mindel, I heard from Elter Chassidim, real Chassidim. I heard from my Zayde, my father, but I otherwise I don't say my opinion. But this time, I think I will say what I think, and I think that this is what Rabbi Chadikov and Rabbi Mindel would say. So that's what I think. First of all, we spoke a few times, the Maaseh from the Mittal Rebbe, that he told somebody, you should be like a bee and not like a spider. A spider makes a web, the web comes from inside the spider. A bee makes honey, but honey does not come from the bee. A bee will go around collecting. So whatever you do say, you have to know that you have to collect, that comes from somewhere. Even the Alter Rebbe, it says, Melukat mipi Sforim, umipi Sorifim Gedoshe Elyon, the Alter Rebbe also took from Sforim, and when he wrote the Tanya. So usually we don't like to say your own opinion, and I never said my own opinion. But here I do want to say something, because people are asking, and I told them that I will discuss it. The Gemara says, Yaakov Avinu lo yimeis. Yaakov didn't die. So the Gemara asks right away, what does it mean, Yaakov lo yimeis? We see that Yaakov Avinu was buried. And when you go to Moris HaMachpelah now, you see Yaakov Avinu. There's Odom and Chava, Avram and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, and Yaakov Aleah. So Yaakov did die. So what does it mean, lo yimeis? So the Gemara right away answers, lo yimeis doesn't mean physically. That means ma zara b'chaim avhu b'chaim. If his children are alive, then he is alive. Meaning that Yaakov's Avinu's children are alive. They follow the derech of their father, so the father is alive. This you can also answer by any father, any parent that raises children, and he raises the children up, derech haTorah v'hamitzvah. So when the father, the grandfather pass away, they're always alive because the children are alive. Avram Avinu was not less of a tzaddik than Yaakov, and Yaakov was not more of a tzaddik than Avram. It's Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they were three Merkovit Alakus. Why doesn't it say by Avram Avinu lo yimeis, Avram lo yimeis, or Yitzchak lo yimeis? Not because they were less tzaddikim, because their children were not like Yaakov's children. Avram Avinu had a son, Yishmael, and Yitzchak had a son, Esav. That's why by them, it doesn't say, but as far as they were all Merkovit Alakus. So, lo yimeis doesn't mean physical. That's number one. Also, we see, Demis does say the word meis by Yaakov, Vayikirvu, Yemei Yisrael Lomus. And Rashi says right there in Pasha Vayichi, Kivon Shenifter Yaakov Avinu, the Y is Vayigash and Vayichi together, the Parsha, and there's no space, because the Eden went into the Mitzrayim. So it's Yaakov, Rashi uses the word niftar, the Yaakov Avinu was niftar. So that's number one. And I think that this is what they would answer. It's only my opinion as far as if the Rebbe is alive, or what alive means. Number 2, it said tzadikim b'misoson nikru chaim. When a tzaddik passes away, he's called chaim. Chaim means life, not physical. A tzaddik, every tzaddik, when he passes away, it's like they're called chaim. The Zohar says that tzadikayo de ispater ishtakach b'chul omin yatir mi b'chayehi. That their presence after they pass away is even more than when they're alive. And the Mitzvah Hashem, in the coming weeks, we will explain that. But in short, when a tzaddik is alive, when the neshama is in the guf, then it's more limited. Now, afterwards, it's unlimited. It's more b'chitzonius. Now it's more b'pnimius. We'll go into it later. So this is the answer as far as if the Rebbe is alive, what alive means. Now, if I would have heard from the Rebbe saying that the Alter Rebbe is alive, or the Mittel Rebbe, that's Machzeh, Marash, Rebbe Rashab, the Friedrich Rebbe, then the Rebbe is alive. The same thing, the Alter Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe, they're all the same. But I never heard from the Rebbe saying that they are alive b'Gashmius. The Rebbe did say, when the Rebbe said Shiva for the Friedrich Rebbe, that week he said the word on the Friedrich Rebbe, Shlita, one time. And that is a different thing, because within Shiva, when the person is distaled within Shiva, so then the Neshama is a different madrege. But otherwise, the Rebbe always said, Zechreine Tzadik v'Kodesh Livrachas Chusay Yogin Aleinu v'Kitzu v'Ranu Sheichni Offer. He said on the Friedrich Rebbe. So by the Rebbe, it's the same idea as the Friedrich Rebbe. Another question I was asked by them: who is greater, the Alter Rebbe or the Rebbe? I said, who can answer you? I mean, we are not in that level to say who's greater. But I will tell you what I think. If the Alter Rebbe would have lived in Tovshin Pei Aleph into today, he could not have been a Nasi. If the Rebbe would have lived in the time of the Alter Rebbe, he could have not been a Nasi. A Nasi in his generation, he is Nasi. Just like Moshe Rabbeinu was a Nasi in Dor HaMidbar, the generation of the Midbar. But Moshe Rabbeinu could not have been a Nasi, the Dor that went into Eretz Yisrael. You needed a Yeshua. So everyone is a Nasi in his generation. So it's not bigger or smaller, but as he is in that generation, the Rebbe is the Nasi Hador. In the Alter Rebbe's time, the Alter Rebbe, when the Friedrich Rebbe was here, the Rebbe was not a Nasi, the Friedrich Rebbe was the Nasi. So each one has, it's not the word who is greater or not. This is an answer to the people that are asking these questions. Now, when we learn Chumash, or when we learn anything in Torah, you can't take things literally, the way it is. You always need Mefarshim to explain. Now, I will share with you something that I personally, in the 80s, there was Rabbi Tannenbaum, Olav Hasholem. He was a principal on Ocean Parkway, and he got older. So he asked me, can I help him to be assistant principal? So for a couple of years, I helped him. There was a 13-year-old boys in the classroom. They learned Hasidus in the morning, and they davened afterwards. The Mashpia left, and they were davening. I walked in the room in the middle of davening, and I saw in a Mizrach wall a picture of the Rebbe. Now, you're not allowed to have a picture on a Mizrach wall. You're not supposed to daven in front of a picture. So, of course, after davening, I called some of the children over and I said, you're not allowed to have that. They said, well, we learned that the Rebbe Rashab said that a Rebbe is Elikus dressed in a body. God dressed in a body. Okay, so, if the Mashpia told him that, which is true, but if he told him that, he should have explained it. Apparently, it was not explained. So I called her the Mashpia. Anyways, what does that mean? You have to explain. You can't say literally. The Rebbe Rashab did say that a Rebbe is a lakus dressed in a body. Every Yid has a lakus in them. Every Yid has a chelik alakami mal mamish. A Rebbe, a Nosi Hador, is probably greater. He has a higher neshama. That's what it means, a lakus dressed in a body. But children, when you say that literally, they don't understand it. A lakus in a body. But you have to know how to explain. Everything has to be explained. And here is a Maimer Amuzgar I want to mention. A few weeks ago, I mentioned the word from Rabbi Chadakov that he said, and that needs to be explained. He said, Rabbi's machshov is belev ish v'atzas Hashem yisokum. A person has a lot of thoughts, and whatever the Eibishter thinks, that's the way it's going to be. It doesn't mean that a person has certain thoughts. A person has thoughts he's going to take a trip here, or he doesn't know where. And what Eibishter wants, that's what's going to happen. Or a person thinks that he's going to take this job, or this job, or this job, and whatever the Eibishter has another thought. That's not what it means. Rabbi's machshoves belavish. A person, let's say, has 5 thoughts, 10 thoughts about something. One of these 10 thoughts, the Eibishter is going to choose, not something else. Why? Because you're Eraisa Yisrael ve'Eraisa v'Kudsha Brichu Kol Echad. A Yid and the Eibishter and Torah is one. So the thought of a Yid, that is Gedusha. So the Eibishter doesn't ignore the thought. If a Yid thinks about certain things, the Eibishter will choose that thought, but not something else. So this is a Maimer HaMuzgar that I wanted to explain what I mentioned a few weeks ago. So going back to what we spoke, it's not important to say whether the Rebbe is alive, Begashmi is not alive. It's not important to say about was the Rebbe Mashiach or not Mashiach. The main thing is Gimel Tammuz is coming up, and it's already 27 years. So people should think, what would the Rebbe want us to do? And I think, my opinion, that we have to learn the Rebbe's Torah, do in Mifsoyim, do favors. What was the Rebbe Meiser Nefesh in this world? What did the Rebbe do? Help other people. But not everything else is not important, because we're not going to get anywhere. Now, the last thing I do want to say is there is a Ksav Yad from the Rebbe. And I have the Ksav Yad. And the Rebbe, somebody asked the Rebbe about if he's Mashiach or not, because this was questions that I was asked. The Rebbe answers, there is no chiyuv to say who is Mashiach. But there is a chiyuv of Ahavas Yisrael. And he underlined the word Ahavas Yisrael. So we see from here that the most important thing is learn Torah, do what the Rebbe wants, and that will be a preparation to Gimel Tammuz. And the Mitzvah Hashem, next week we're going to continue the second part of the Achonis of Gimel Tammuz. Thank you.